This is the Tabernacle Podcast with Tracey, Kaleita, and Rachel Vore. What's up, blondies?
What's up?
Hey, we're here.
We're here. We're doing it.
We're here. We're doing it. What are we doing?
We're just going to talk about some things.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some things. Tracey Kaleita is one of our dear friends, part of the Tabernacle family, Tabernacle team. She happens to be the wife of Big Tom Kaleita, who was on episode 163 and 164, shared in-depth, powerful, one of my favorite guests that we've had. So if you haven't heard his side of the story, you might want to check those out. But Tracey's here to correct it.
I mean, he didn't do a whole lot wrong, so I can't really say it's a lot of correcting. But
it's a lot of correcting, but
just different.
Just different. Yeah. This might be a little bit of the other part of that story. And it was a powerful story. It was about how God had changed his life and his spiritual journey, and then yours together, which was super cool. But I also want to point out that, and of course, Rachel is the leader of our Tab Women ministry here and has been on the podcast before. Thank you for agreeing to step on here just to offset my minus,
Yes.
my mess.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for, just to offset your minus.
Exactly. She's just here to kind of, but Tracey Kaleita is also, if you've listened to the podcast, you've heard us reference Trace Cakes a gazillion times. You're the first and longest serving sponsor of this show. And some of the sponsorship is, no free shout-outs.
No free shout-outs.
Yeah. And it was more like Britton, your oldest son.
Yes.
who helped found this podcast, and we're looking at some delicious confections right now. Right in front of me. This is going to be torture, but this is some sort of chocolate chip peanut butter cup.
That is the Reese's cup.
That is the
Gourmet
Reese's
cookie.
cup.
Yeah, there's a whole Reese's cup stashed inside of that peanut butter cookie.
This will kill all of my New Year's resolutions.
You're welcome.
And
That's what I'm here for.
I'm just here to bring joy. And then these are some sort of
vanilla almond confetti. Yeah, lots of sprinkles. Those are a kid favorite. They're very tasty if you like a sugar cookie.
One of those might go to my granddaughter, but my
She'll
daughter
devour it.
will not be happy with me. Benjamin has one in his mouth as we speak.
He's a smart guy.
He's a smart guy. So to kick it off, what I thought, since you are the legend that is Trace Cakes, if you have not, you want to visit tracecakes.com. She operates out of Kingsley, and Trace Cakes, the mission is to provide custom confections to make your special celebrations a bit sweeter. But you also do classes, do all those types of things. But I want to start in Scripture.
Absolutely.
I want to start in Scripture. Genesis chapter 18. This is the first place where cake is mentioned in Scripture. As far as I can tell, at least in the ESV.
Love it.
Abraham, Abraham, this is the moment where it says in verse 1, the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre. He sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day, lifted up his eyes, looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the earth and said, O Lord, if I found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, wash your feet, rest yourselves under the tree while I bring a morsel of bread that you may refresh yourselves. And after that, you may pass on since you have come to your servant. So they said, do as you said. So it's this real spooky kind of, we're going to do a Stranger Things podcast. It says the Lord appeared, but there were 3 dudes. I don't believe it's Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I think it was the pre-incarnate Christ, and he's got like an angel band with him, right? So this is, we're not going to jump too theological here, but this is my favorite part. Verse 6, Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes.
Yes.
The Lord appears to Abraham, and he goes to his Trace Cakes, Sarah Cakes, and was like, the Lord's here with an angel band. We need cake.
Exactly. We need cake.
So I'm a little disappointed because he didn't say pie.
I mean,
but
it's biblical. See?
So let's just get that out of the way from the beginning. Do you hate pie?
I don't hate it. It is finicky. If I had to choose, I would 100% eat cake all day, every day. You can have so many flavors
all day, every day.
I hide it very, very well, but I do taste test because I want to make sure everything is, when I'm trying a new recipe or something, I want to make sure everything. Yeah.
See, that must take discipline.
It does, because it's really easy to Like sugar is my nemesis. But
oh, really?
Usually when it's homemade, you're like, this has no calories in it because it's homemade.
This is great.
That's not true.
That's not true, believe it or not. That's not true. No, it's not necessarily healthier, but it is. Everything we do is made from scratch. So, so by doing that, I have to taste test it. I got to try it out, see if it's worthy of, being put on the shelf. And
When my wife makes her Legend chocolate chip cookies that I love because they're just mush. I mean, they hardly stay together. They're just the proper, stop, right? When the batter is in the bowl, that's got to be the greatest thing ever. You can still taste the grains of sugar.
Yes.
Like I can taste them right now. It's like, stop it. I haven't made the cookies yet. I don't even care.
As a kid, I did that.
Really?
As an adult, I don't really lick the beaters or anything.
Is that not healthy?
Now, I just...
licking the beaters out of the batter
You know what
bowl.
I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, when you're when you were a kid and your mom was whipping up something and you stick a finger in there or lick the beater
Here,
or
you
whatever.
can have the beater. And I'd lick them before they went into the
And then
wash.
it was like, don't. There's like, I don't know, salmonella or something.
You gotta die of something. You have to die of something.
And why
not?
It
might as well be salmonella from the cake batter beater.
Why not with something delicious?
Anyways, we're not going to talk about the cake the whole time.
No.
But I thought that was cool.
I do have to give you guys a huge shout out because you guys have been doing that since, day one, I want to say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Day one.
I was
Britton was looking to fill the air and he was hungry.
Yeah.
He's probably just been to your house.
Totally appreciate it. But it amazes me when people come in and they go, oh yeah, you're the one that we hear about on the podcast.
Oh, that makes me happy.
It. Mm-hmm. It makes me happy too. And not for me and my business, but for yes, they are listening to the podcast.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Cool.
It's amazing. So
I apologize that one of our most recent podcasts, I think it was Help My Marriage Part 1, Tim Burgess did say that people should look for the giraffe cookie.
He did.
Has anyone asked for the giraffe cookie?
No.
Not yet. Not yet. Well, it's out there because they don't listen to them all at once, but
it's out there.
That's a little inside joke.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah,
appreciate
the giraffe cookie.
Yeah.
But your life.
Yes.
What's your earliest memory? That was for Britton, your oldest son.
My earliest memory, period, or church-wise?
Whatever you want.
Oh my gosh. I remember being in kindergarten and losing my first tooth, biting into an apple.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Was that traumatic?
Yeah, because you took a bite and it was my first tooth, right? So I bit into it and I pulled it away from my mouth and there was my tooth sticking out of this apple and I'm like,
That happened.
With my favorite teacher of all time, Mrs. Fournier. It was in her class and I remember that very vividly. Yeah.
And so where'd you grow
up? Traverse City, born and raised right here, Northern Michigan. I'm a Northern Michigan girl.
Yeah.
Yep. Born and raised in Traverse City. We moved when I was going into 7th grade. So I went to Cherry Knoll Elementary and then we moved to Kingsley when I was going into the 7th grade. Because TC and the middle schools and stuff were getting a little rough around the edges at that time. So, we moved to Kingsley, just a little bit south. But
was it a Christian home?
Yes.
Or was church part of it?
Yeah. I do remember I kind of grew up in the Methodist church. So we went to the United Methodist Church in Traverse, and I don't remember being baptized or anything in the church, but I do remember attending, and they had a little kids thing, and I remember our church being in several different buildings. It had been at my elementary school, it had been at another elementary school, so it kind of bounced around until they got there. Oh, so it was
a newer church. There hadn't
I
even
guess.
been built.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And my mom, I remember when I was really little, she was helping out kind of secretary kind of thing. I don't know if she was, she wasn't full time or whatever, but so I remember her helping in the church and it was fine. It was fun, I guess.
Yeah.
Little kid in a church service, you're kind of meh, whatever.
Whatever, right.
Yeah.
Meh. Oh, I like that. That's the first meh we've had. Well done, legend.
It's true. But so then I do remember going when I was a kid, when we were still at that church, I remember attending a vacation Bible school at Bible Baptist in Traverse City.
Oh, yeah. Get some of that Baptist in you.
Right? I mean, it was I mean, I liked it. I liked the activities. Like, everything we did was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like my first, like, there's something to this whole Jesus thing. Because I remember them asking, do you have Jesus in your heart? Are you ready to ask Jesus into your heart? Are you ready? And I'm like, I think I should be, but I don't really know what this is all about, like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And I remember.
What does that entail?
I know. And as a kid, you don't fully grasp what that means. So I do remember going, like, in the woods and sitting with one of, like, the counselors, and, like, she helped me, like, ask him into my heart. But that was at that point I was like, okay, I did it.
Yeah.
But it almost seemed like more of it was what you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Type thing.
So, like, was it pressure? Were you, like, nervous if you didn't do it, or
it kind of felt like that? Yeah. Like, and ever since, which now I'm 41, but ever since, anytime I hear people within a church say something like, if you don't have them, like, come up front. If you don't have them in your heart, let's accept them now and stuff like that. It does seem like a lot of pressure. Like, geez, no, know, like, it should be authentic and have something that really motivates you to do it, not be pressured into doing it.
Right. So did you ever struggle to believe in God before that? Or were you just
I don't think so.
Always aware? Or
I mean, I was aware, but, again, as a kid, I don't remember, ever, like, if I prayed, it was because everybody around me was and they were doing it. And so then, okay, this is what we're supposed to do, is bow our head and close our eyes and,
Right.
But it was never like, when I was a child, I don't ever remember doing it for a purpose for myself. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So.
I can already see what you were talking about when we were upstairs about, hey, the types of things that are meaningful and important, kind of for you. So approximately how old were you, do you think, when all that went down?
That would have been elementary aged for sure. Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just speaking just the other day with someone that was like, had come out of a Christian tradition where if you couldn't nail down the day and the time where you were born again, you're probably not saved. And this was the church that this person attended. And so he said, there were salvations every Sunday because it was just that fear. It was that pressure.
Yeah.
And in fact, he had come to this church believing that, and then had said something to that effect in the Fight Club because that's what he'd always heard. And now he's in his 60s. And I don't remember this, but he said, and you checked me. Yeah, we were sitting on a fishing boat, and he goes, you checked me because you said, I don't agree. That for some people, it is that moment. For other people's, it's more of a longer journey. And I think we try to be just try to say that people have different journeys, and that's okay. There's some people that hang out for a while, want to hear more about God, and want to hear the word. And then one day they're like, hey, we need to get to church. Or I'm going to take communion. I believe this, and it's not this big repeat after me.
Right.
That's the biggest awkward thing. Right. So did you have to repeat it? Hey, say these words.
Right. Yeah. You had to say certain words, and that was how you, like, got Jesus into your heart. And it was just awkward.
Yeah.
I mean, for lack of better terms, it was because as a kid, I don't have anything to compare it to. So, like, as an adult now, if I'm praying about something, I'm doing it for a reason. I am praying because I need to. And as a kid, it was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Everybody else is doing it. So I guess I'll just, we're just going to follow along, So, it wasn't until later that prayer became more powerful and more meaningful in my life, for sure, in my journey with Christ. So
you moved to Kingsley, you said junior high?
No, seventh grade. I was going into seventh grade. Yep.
What types of things is Tracey, and I'm going to use your maiden name, Benedict.
That's it.
Tracey Benedict. What is she into in junior high?
I was into band.
Yeah.
Always been into band. I was in orchestra in Traverse. Then we moved to Kingsley, and they didn't have one. So I had to switch instruments. That was really sad.
What did you play in the band?
Cello. In orchestra. Whoa. I played cello. Yeah. Loved it.
Yeah. So strings.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then moved to Kingsley, and they didn't have an orchestra. So I had to switch. So I switched to French horn. And then
my mom played the French horn.
Yes. My son plays it now too, ironically, not because of me.
Yeah. What made you switch to that from like strings to?
Because we didn't have strings.
Oh, there was none.
None at all.
They have some strings now, don't they?
No.
No?
No.
Oh.
Still no
Listen, my daughter's in band, and I didn't know that. So that's okay. How much I know about instruments.
She plays clarinet. Yeah, with my daughter. Yeah. So, I had to switch, and I did. And then there was another song, like one song we were going to do at a concert, and my director said, hey, I need a bass player for this. Do you want to learn how to play bass? Mm. And at the time, I was like, sure. Because it's the same. I mean, it's basically like taking a cello and putting it on a strap and, same notes and everything. And I was like, yeah, sure. So that's where that whole thing started, was
playing bass. Awesome.
Seventh or eighth grade. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been playing it ever since.
So what are you into at Kingsley? Like
when did sports and things and band.
Did you play sports as well?
I did, mostly volleyball and softball.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All through. But I also became really good friends. She was like my best friend. I had like a boyfriend, middle school boyfriend, and he and my best friend attended the Baptist church in Kingsley. And she was actually the pastor's daughter.
Oh, cool.
So became really close with them. And that was a whole new experience, was like attending the Baptist church.
Yeah. Tell us about that. Yeah.
Did you go with your family, or was it like the aftercare or like the Wednesday night?
Oh yeah, they did the Wednesday night. They did the Sunday evening church, or what I think that's what it was called, night church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, we got pretty involved in that, and it was different. It was so different. I remember being like very like, okay, I need to take notes and I need to, like trying to get like into it and stuff. But some of the thing, and so I'll say this, it was getting involved as just being there, attending, and with my friends. So that made it easy. And then it all seemed very formal to me. Mm. And like they had a choir, but the choir had like robes and, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a fancy church, I'm not used to this. And then
we need some robes at the
right. Tab. We need some robes. We need,
pass it up.
And then, I mean, we're fancy here at the Tab. It's fine. We're fancy enough. Yeah. But then I remember I joined the youth group. Yeah. And that was huge too, because that was kids at my school. And so we had tons of fun doing that and doing some outreach stuff and just being involved and having that outlet, to get involved with kids your own age and have a blast, lock-ins and whatever, all the fun stuff. So that was great. But then it started to occur to me, this was probably just through middle school, I want to say. Maybe a little bit into high school, but not like all the way through. That I just wasn't fully okay with the stuff they were saying. Mm. Like these girls couldn't, the kids of pastor and whatnot, like they weren't allowed to go to dances and they weren't allowed to do, and I've heard you kind of joke about that too in some of your sermons and stuff. But it was really strict. And I kept thinking to myself, but why? There's nothing like people rejoice in the Bible. Right. They sing and they dance and they do. Why are we telling our own people we can't do this? Like that just seemed very bizarre to me. Mm. So that kind of.
So you're a little exposed to more of the rules side, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. And not that my parents were doing that. They never.
Right.
You can't dance. You can't do this. They were never.
We're Methodist.
Right. right. We're just going to keep that in our back pocket and we're going to go to this church.
Which the ironic thing is, and this is no slam on Methodists or Baptists.
No,
we
have
all kinds at the Free Church. Mm-hmm. I mean, I grew up Wesleyan, which is very close to Methodist. Mm-hmm. Is the Methodists and the Wesleyans, their rules are very similar to the Baptists. But I had the same thing. It was like, I'm agreeing with you that it was like some of the things to kind of make us appear Christian, we weren't necessarily Christian. But
So it was weird. And I just kind of was like,
And you picked up on that even in high school.
Yeah.
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 I mean, you said, I see dancing and singing and rejoicing. And I mean, we're not talking a rager, but we're talking about.
We're not talking about
and
naked,
it's not
like David was. Like,
right. And it's not talking about, drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. Like, no, it was none of that. So that's why I'm like, this is kind of weird.
Odd.
Yeah.
But were you growing there? Like were you growing in knowledge of the word?
A little bit.
Like, did it feel more genuine for you?
Yeah, a little bit more. Like I said, because I was, taking notes and like getting into it, right? Mm-hmm. So that part did seem a little more genuine. I will say I have never been the person to be like, oh, I know the verses of the Bible. Like if you want to,
no, I gotta
let's
write them
go.
Down.
Like, no, I'm so not that person. Or if I'm talking to somebody and they're, and when people can reference like scripture and stuff, I'm like, oh,
I wish.
Envious. Yeah.
Well, Malachi chapter 3.
Right. I'm like, oh, I can't do that. Nope, that's not happening. Right. So, but yeah, so then that we just kind of faded away from that a little bit. Mm-hmm. And of course, high school, and then you're going off to college and stuff. So yeah, the Baptist church was like, okay, thanks.
It was another step in the journey.
Mm-hmm.
But
it was. Yep.
So when did you meet Tom?
We met in
Or is that too soon?
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
We met in high school.
Yeah.
I was a sophomore and he was a junior.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your first impression of this giant?
He was a giant. And he was. He was a stud.
And
he still is.
Yeah.
I mean, he still is.
He's a giant, yeah.
But no, he was like the athlete. When I first met him, super humble, super sweet, funny. Oh my gosh. Still to this day, he makes me laugh. Yeah. But and we just kind of hit it off. And he had gotten out of a relationship that, like, he got dumped right before he met me, and I got dumped right before I met him.
It was a rebounder for both of you?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
We, one of his best friends was like, hey, you should date this girl. And he'll tell you, too. I think he actually said it in his podcast. He remembers seeing me as the drum major in marching band when he was playing football, going, who's that girl?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so, he kind of spotted me first. Okay. And then, we just kind of hit it off.
Is the drum major the one in
That's
front?
That's the one conducting.
Yeah. And you have the big baton and you smack freshmen when they get out of line and all that kind of stuff.
We didn't have a baton, but
Okay,
yep.
Darn it.
So, yes, I know, right? No, but that's what I was doing, So
you said high school kind of tapered off a little bit on the spiritual heat, just a little bit?
Definitely.
Okay. What's next after high school then?
Then we went
Or sorry, was there
No, you're fine.
Yeah. Prayer, you said, at this point was when you were supposed to.
Correct.
It wasn't really the deep relationship that you have now.
Right.
But, yeah. So off to college.
Yep, off to college.
Where'd you go to college?
Eastern Michigan.
Yeah.
I followed him.
Yeah.
Yep. He went the year before I did.
Mm-hmm.
He graduated, and then I had my senior year, and then I went. And I always knew I wanted to be a teacher ever since I was little girl.
Since the tooth and the apple.
Absolutely.
And Mrs. Fournier.
Absolutely.
Remembered.
Yep. Good work. Used to have like a little chalkboard and played school with my brother and growing up. And I was all about it. So I went to, I was choosing between Grand Valley and Eastern. And Eastern, I was dead set on going to Grand Valley. Like, that's where I wanted to go. And then I found out that Eastern actually had an amazing college of education, notorious. And I was like, well, that's icing on the cake. No pun intended.
No pun intended. Well done.
That's icing on the cake because my boyfriend goes there. So why not?
So what part of teaching what part of teaching made you feel like you wanted to be a teacher? Was it to be involved with the students, or was it the education part? Was it I want to make sure that like I can be like how my kindergarten teacher was for me and how she made me feel? Like, what was that?
I think a lot of it was as going through it and studying it, to become a teacher, a lot of it was, oh my gosh, I can not only instill this knowledge on kids, but get them fired up about something, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted to be a teacher. When I first entered college, I did not know what I wanted to teach. I just knew I wanted to be a teacher. And so kind of figuring that out, I majored in math and I minored in science. And I ended up spending most of my career teaching science.
Wow.
But how fun was it? I mean, it was a blast because you'd get them to learn about things and experiment and get, hands-on stuff. And then you would see that light bulb moment just when they're like, oh my gosh, I get this. And you're just like, yes, it'd get you fired up for it too. And so, yeah, I think it was that, like, just instilling that passion in kids for whatever the subject was that I was doing that just made it so worthwhile. Yeah.
That's interesting because I'm thinking about middle school and high school, and I had good teachers and average teachers and teachers that I remember. And I remember a science teacher who was big into, his science lab was probably like your cake lab. Like we were doing stuff, and I remember the stuff but much better than how I did on the test.
Right.
But, never forget being a ninth grader and hey, what is a physical change? And there's crickets. And then someone reads the definition and it's boring. And I'm like, science sucks. And then this guy took a beaker and smashed it on the floor and goes, that's a physical change. And I'll never forget. I was like, I like this guy. Let's go.
Yep, exactly.
What are we going to blow up? What are we going to burn?
Right.
Yeah, let's make, nitroglycerin.
That is always the question that kids always ask. When are we going to blow something up?
Exactly.
When are we going to blow something up?
When are we going to burn something?
In due time. Okay. In due time.
So you were the cool teacher.
Yeah, I tried to be. I tried to be. Yeah.
But college, where's Tracey's faith at this point? This faith that's kind of been nurtured. It started in multiple denominations. You said at high school kind of tapered off, but now I'm thinking about life and all this kind of stuff.
I'm not going to lie. Yeah. It was non-existent in college. It was not there. It was small fish in a big pond. Coming from Kingsley, graduated with 77 kids, going to Eastern Michigan, Ypsilanti, 25,000. I mean, it didn't feel that big, but, and I know that there was a church on campus and there might've been organizations and stuff, but I really just, let's figure out this school thing. Let's figure out this teaching thing. Got a job on campus, worked in the admissions office, had a blast. I mean, everything was great and had a blast, but Christ was non-existent in that. In that time.
Was it a rejection of Christ or more just like
I wouldn't say it was
busy?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a rejection, but it was definite. It was I'm not making time for this. Not that I maybe don't want to, but I just know there's so much else going on. So it just wasn't there.
Right. So did Tom graduate before you?
He did.
I don't know, because if he was an athlete, if he did a victory lap to wait for you or anything like,
he graduated before I did, and then he went through the whole drafting process of, I remember being at his agent's house and sitting there waiting for a call, and it was wild. That whole thing was just insane.
Were you like, hey, I'm his biggest fan, or were you like invested because your relationship survived 4 years of college, and this is my future too?
It was probably both. I mean, I know I can speak for I know his mom specifically did not think our relationship was going to go past high school. She just didn't for whatever reason. But he and I were, we were committed, and I followed him to college, So then when he will say that he's very fortunate that I like football, and I do. I'm a weird woman that way, but I love it.
Watch football games with you
understand
guys.
it.
You know more about it than I do.
But I know it, love it, understand it. And he and I have both said, like, man, you would be toast if you had a different wife that didn't like it. Like, it would be awful.
You would be toast.
She would be miserable. Like, oh gosh. But yeah, so it was wherever this is going, I'm going to follow you. Wherever, whatever's happening, like, yep, I'm in it. Let's do it. Yeah.
So did you guys put like obviously the next step is marriage. Was that kind of put on hold for a minute?
Yeah, I think he was ready to propose to me earlier than he actually did. So we'd been together 9 years before he proposed to me. But 3 of those were in high school. So
right.
yeah, so we kind of waited to see where we were at and what was going on with that. And he was in Berlin for 4 months. He was down in Tampa for a season. So it really was like, oh, like when he was down in Tampa, I graduated from college and I went to a teacher job fair at Eastern, which is huge. I mean, they had schools from all over the country, tons of schools in Michigan. And I remember all of the schools from all over were represented. All their representatives had a table in the middle of our convocation center, which is our basketball arena. And they had like no lines at them whatsoever. All of the schools from Michigan were around the perimeter in the state of Michigan. And they all had like 2-hour waits to even get up to the table and see. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I called him and I said, what county are you in Florida? Like, is this a thing? Is this going to happen? Are we doing this?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I think you should. Told me where, whatever. I walked right up to the table, signed an advance contract on the spot.
Wow.
And then went down there and interviewed. And
so they're desperate for teachers at the time in Florida.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You could have gone anywhere. They gave a signing bonus.
Wow.
Yeah.
So to fill in just some of the blanks. Didn't hear, no, you're fine. For the podcast listeners, if you didn't listen to 163 and 164, Tom had originally gone to the Lions, and then that didn't work out, and he was sent to NFL Europe.
Correct.
And he spent a year playing for the Berlin
Thunder.
The Berlin Thunder, right? And then came back to Tampa to play arena football.
Yeah, he came back and was re-signed again with the Lions, and then he was cut again.
Right.
And then
he was re-signed with the Lions, and then he ends up playing
arena football.
Yeah. So that's where we are. And so now you're still following, but following isn't like I almost don't like that term because I feel like it
almost makes it seem like I don't have a mind of my own. Like
exactly.
I'm just like, whatever you want, honey. And like
exactly. That's exactly it's you guys are in love. You have a relationship. You love this guy. He loves you. He's been trying to figure out football. You're finishing school. This is the person I want to be with. And so, I think that's an admirable thing. And
you guys made it work. So, like, you still were pursuing your dreams of being a teacher while he was pursuing his dreams of football. And so you just try to find the middle ground of making it work together. So,
navigating all these things away from family, away from, yes, we could pick up a phone and call, but like,
no, that's a big deal.
Distance,
away from guidance, away from
deal.
It was like
Darcy lived in Buckley, and when she married me, all of a sudden we moved to North Carolina, and she's like, I don't know anybody. Yeah. And that's a big deal when you come from tiny little northern 100%. Michigan, and now you're in Tampa.
It was
that's
huge,
a megalopolis.
Yeah, and it was hard too because he was a part of a team, so he automatically had support system. Support system, teammates,
you and Darcy need to be in a support group.
I know, right? But you
she
automatically
had that combo
have
with
that.
Me countless times. You have a team. You have bros.
Yes.
I don't know anyone.
I don't have anybody. Yeah. And it's true.
I'm over here with the wives and the girlfriends.
Right.
I don't know any of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you're in it together with the wives and the girlfriends, but it's still, if you're not seeing them, then it's hard. Or if you're not, Anyway, luckily I got that once I got a job. Because then you're now I'm on a team with all these teachers and we're in it together. Like we're in the trenches. So it's so those became my friends. And yes, we did eventually get to know, we had some couples of his teammates, that we were friends with and stuff and really good friends with. And it was, we had a blast. We were just a couple of dinks. Double income, no kids. We were just hanging out in Florida and,
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Really?
Income,
double
no kids.
Income, no kids.
Maybe I have. No, I like that. I'm familiar with WASP, but I know
Fair.
dinks.
Yeah.
So a couple of
we
dinks.
We were a couple of dinks. Just
nice.
And everybody around us was like his teammates were in relationships, fairly committed relationships and same boat. No kids. Their families were in other states.
So you guys just kind of came each other's families.
We did. Yep. Oh yeah, we would celebrate Thanksgiving together and all cook and stuff like that. And because that was what we knew. We just kind of rallied around each other, and made it work. So yeah.
Kind of like foreigners in a foreign land.
Really were. Yeah.
So what came next in the spiritual journey for you?
I think so. Like at that point, we weren't attending a church. We didn't attend a church in college.
Mm-hmm.
We hadn't attended a church in Florida yet. And I really don't know. I can't think of like one specific moment where we were like, hey, we should go to church. But something happened. There was a push of some kind. And right down the road from where we lived was a Methodist church. Less than a mile from our condo. And we just kind of said, hey, maybe we should check that out sometime. Because he had a little bit of Methodist background.
Right.
I had Methodist background. We're like, maybe this is like the safe spot to go and check it out. So,
was there a quarterback involved?
Brett.
There was,
our
that
best
wasn't
bud.
he super involved or
Brett Dietz.
Did I get that mixed up?
No, he was, and he was actually in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes as well, and like a Big Brothers Big Sisters, and he was involved in a couple of things, and I think he may have been a nudge too in Tom's corner to like, hey, maybe. And so, he ended up attending that church with us a couple of times. But so it was what we knew, the Methodist background and stuff. So we're like, let's just go check it out some Sunday, see what it's all about. And we did. And I know he told this story too, but when we got there was the Rileys were a big part of our lives, second family to us. And when we left, or we were leaving, the two sons, Kevin and Scott, came running up to us like, hey, who are you guys? Hi. Hey, we'd love to see you come back. They were all excited.
There's a power couple.
Well, we were like the youngest ones by like 30 years in the congregation at that time. So they were like, oh, fresh meat, kind of thing. So, so they grabbed on, and we became great friends with them. They were like brothers to us, and that kind of got us going there.
So you're invested at the church. He's going through all the pro sports stuff, a lot of travel. You're doing the teaching thing. The way I remember Tom sharing the story is that's where faith like the flame started to really be born just a little bit. Would you say the same from your end?
Yeah, I would say so. We had a wonderful pastor, and we felt the push to get involved within that church and to is that mine?
I have no idea. We got a phone.
It might be. Sorry, Trace Cakes is on hold right now. But we got involved, and I would say that kind of started to get things going a little bit more. And when we did, it felt right.
Yeah.
Like it felt good. And they started a little like praise team. And so they needed a bassist.
Yeah.
And
I know how to do this.
So it was like, okay.
So you're in the band.
So I was in the band.
Roped into the band.
Yep. And we had a drummer once in a while. So it was like a smaller scale version of what we do here at the Tab.
Yeah.
Tom ran sound, shockingly enough,
Whoa,
for like a hot second.
Down. We did not know he had sound tech in his background.
He was trained, but it wasn't like, it was like trial by fire.
Yeah, it was a trial by fire.
He had no background in it.
I have no idea what's going on with the feedback.
Correct.
You got these meat hooks on small buttons.
Right, like let's see what happens.
No, I'd love to see that.
Yeah. But it was good. It was good. So that got us involved. And then after that, so this was still pre-kids for us, still just the two of us. But that whole concept of being church hurt, that happened
really
at that particular spot. Yeah.
Tell us what you can.
Oh, I can.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the brothers that I mentioned,
the Rileys.
Yes, he was our lead singer. The other brother was a guitar player, and his parents were both heavily involved in the church as well. And the girlfriend of the singer was also heavily involved, and she ran kind of the kids stuff of the church. And they had gone through a transition and gotten a new pastor, which was very interesting to be a part of. I've never been a part of a church before, or a member of a church when they go through that transition period of a new pastor. So that was interesting. And when the new one came in, he was very adamant about, and I don't know enough of the background to know if it was he just wasn't a fan of this family or if he was just not a fan of what was happening. I don't know. But he knew that Scott, the singer, and his girlfriend were living together, but they weren't married.
Mm-hmm.
They had talked about it, but they weren't married yet. And he took complete issue with that. And to the point where he basically, long story short, he drove the family out. Said, you cannot have this position. You can't be the singer. You can't be a children's ministry leader if you're not married because you're living apart. You're living together and you're not married. So you got to go.
Yeah.
And that was really difficult for me to understand because, again, I'm not the person that's like, oh, I can quote scripture left and right. But to me, watching it happen, I was like, but why? They're bringing the gospel to people. She's allowing these kids to know Jesus. Why are we kicking them out essentially because of this? It just didn't make sense to me. And it hurt because it was, we're all going to be a united front. So if they're kicking you out, then we're all leaving.
Right.
And we did.
Especially when you're like, I don't want to call you a baby Christian at that point, but kind of in your faith, kind of a baby Christian. And if something like that, which is an intricate dance to do, right? Because on the one hand, you want to uphold what the Bible says with your leaders.
Right.
But on the other hand, when you're dealing with a whole bunch of people that maybe don't understand, it's got to be handled in a I don't know how you would say a firm, but a very delicate way. I was just looking up something here because you used the word church hurt. It says church hurt is the worst kind of hurt. It's like getting stabbed in the back while the person holding the knife is looking directly into your eyes. And church hurt is real. I mean, there's, and what's interesting to me is sometimes it's the institution that's at fault, not handling something in a grace-filled way. And then sometimes it's downright betrayal, right? And then sometimes it's the person who's being hurt just misunderstands something. It doesn't change the hurt. Hurt is hurt is hurt. Yeah, hurt is hurt. So now you're like, the flame is starting to be built up, and now it's kind of getting quenched a bit.
It's like snuffed out almost. Yeah. It was hard because that family was involved in that church for a long time, long before we had gotten there, and we were there for a few years before this all happened. And so it was tough because we're like, let's, we're starting to grow in our faith, and we're like involved and serving and,
Like I'm trying to go through my computer brain here, just like, okay, how would I have handled that? And I don't know. I again, I loved how you put the disclaimer. I don't know all the details, right?
Right.
This is just your perception.
Absolutely.
I would have probably started with this dynamic couple of, hey guys, let's get married.
Right.
Why don't we just do this? Because it's obvious that they were being used by God. God can use a jackass. He can use anybody, right? But yeah, I don't want to make it that story.
No, you're fine.
I'm just right over here going, I wonder if there's a better grace-filled way to kind of do that. Did you guys end up leaving?
We did.
Yeah.
We did. We left. Yep. And that was really hard because so we all stuck together. I mean, these guys were our second family. So our family's still back up in Michigan. Yeah. These guys were, like parents and brothers to us. So, so then we started the process after that of, well, let's try and find another church. What are we going to do? Because it wasn't like we didn't want to go.
Yeah.
It didn't scare us away that much.
Right.
So we're like, let's try and find something. So then we'd go all around, St. Pete and try and find a church. And I'll never forget this. And I know, like I've heard Victoria say it sometimes too, because, being in creative arts and stuff, people worship in different ways. And one of my favorite things is through music. And I remember specifically we attended a different church and they played a song. They had a band.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we didn't think it was as good as ours, but that's neither here nor there. But they had a band and they played a song that we used to play. And I remember bawling when they started playing it. Just bawling in the pew. And I'm sitting there surrounded by everybody else, that's with us. And I just lost it. And it was like, because in that moment, I felt like my desire to worship God was through music, and that had gotten taken away from me. So then it was like, now what? Now what am I supposed to do? These guys get to do it. They get to sing that song. They get to praise him.
Yeah.
Why can't I? Because it was nothing that I had done that caused us to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my church hurt.
Yeah.
So how did you reconcile that then with the feeling that you're like, well, that was taken away from me? Your desire is to worship the Lord. And that is the way that you worship the Lord is through music. So how did you, in that moment, so it obviously, do you remember the song?
I don't. I wish I did.
No,
I wish I did.
But it just happened to be a song from the past of your previous church.
Probably
right?
something by David Crowder or something at the time. But,
And then, so you're sitting here broken because your desire is to praise the Lord, right? So how did you reconcile that? Like, what came after that?
Oh gosh, it was hard. It really was. I mean, I'm the type too. Like when we're worshiping, if I'm not not on stage, if I'm sitting in the back or whatever, and just getting my worship on, like there will be certain songs where like I will feel them. Like a visceral reaction, like in my body, get the tingles and stuff. And I'm like, yes. And so to have that like ripped out is it was so hard that day. And then I think I prayed about it and just said like, can we find something? Like this clearly isn't working. Can we find something else? Because I didn't want to keep having that reaction. And I know I had a conversation with Tom and just said, like, we can't keep going to these churches. If it's going to, like, emotionally drain me every time we go because they're singing a song that I want to say, like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We got to take a break from trying to find a church then if that's the way it's going to be, because I can't just keep going through that, So
was that one of the first times you remember, you mentioned prayer?
Yeah.
Prayer starting to be a thing now?
It was, yeah. And I also remember right before that, we had Landon. And he, right before him.
That's your oldest son.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Who's as tall as his father.
I know, he's a giant. Yeah.
He's getting, that poor kid. Love him to pieces. I feel so bad you're going to be tall. Sorry. But right before we had him, so I guess I'm kind of backtracking a little bit, I had miscarried before having him. And I remember specifically, again, the bawling. I'm not really a crier unless I have to be, I guess. But I remember sobbing going to the doctor, and I had gotten home and told Tom what had happened and whatever. And I remember then just praying, because I remember specifically watching things on TV, like, on the news or whatever. And this mother just killed her kids. And I'm sitting there like trying to be a mom and wanting to be a mom. And I'm like, she got to be and she did this, why? Just angry. And I remember, trying to recover this loss and how do we move on and that sort of thing. And I just prayed in that moment, like, hey, I want to be a mom. I'm going to give this to you, whatever needs to happen. And it was the weirdest thing, but I just had this calm just right over me. And I was like, okay, I guess it's going to be okay. That was weird. What was, what was that? But and we moved on from it and obviously have 2 awesome kids now. But that was so wild. So that was another spot that I'm like, prayer. Let's do this prayer thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I'm bouncing around.
No, that's great. No, it's great. What what was the next phase in the spiritual journey then for you? Because you call that a marker. I mean, we're looking at all these markers.
Right.
And prayer in that, or after the miscarriage, you experienced that. Did you suddenly become the prayer warrior person?
I don't know that I was a prayer warrior at that point. Not yet.
Yeah.
No, not yet. Not too long after that, we had, I'm kind of fast forwarding a couple of years, but we had Natalie, and then Tom and I knew Florida was not going to be our forever home.
Right.
We were not Floridians. We're from northern Michigan.
Yeah.
We are pale, and we are not meant to be Floridians. So we knew we wanted to come back home. And so we eventually did. We spent 8 years down there, away from our family, away from, which is really easy. I don't want to say really easy. It's easier when you don't have kids of your own, because it was just the two of us. But when you start bringing kids into it and you want them to be around their grandparents and you want them to be around family, it's really hard.
Yeah.
It was really hard. So we knew, no, this isn't going to last. We're going home. So we did. And we moved in with my parents for 3 months. And that was when prayer became really powerful. It did. Yeah. It was necessary.
So even though there's not a church, I mean, your faith is still like the enemy can't squash it. Miscarriage can't squash it. You got 2 kids. We're moving home. All the heartstrings. Now you're at home, and just only what you want to share. Why did prayer become the thing?
Because it's one thing to, grow up in your home and live with your parents, that's one thing. And then when you have your own family and your own way of doing things and you move back in, it's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be the first to say, I love my parents. I have a very close family, brother, mom, dad, all great. But when you've been on your own and doing your own thing and you move back in, it can be a struggle. Because we're sharing their house. It's their house. It's not ours.
Right.
And we're bringing our kids into it.
Yeah.
So it was tough. But prayer, man.
What was your biggest prayer during that time? Just
get us a house.
Get us a house. Yeah.
It really was. Please let us find a house. Please, Lord, let us find a house.
What year is this kind of?
This would have been 2015, I believe.
Okay.
Right? 2014. No, Natalie was born in 2015.
Okay. So was the housing going, was it just nobody was selling?
There were houses. There were houses, but it was, and we were seeing a few, and it was like, do we like this one? Do we not? You know? And there was one that we loved, and it wasn't on we put an offer in on it, and the next day they foreclosed on it. And we were like, you've got to be kidding me. And so then we're like, well, can we do it again? Can we, let's get this thing now in foreclosure or whatever. I remember going over to that house. They had little flyers in a little container on the tree. Yeah. And I would go over there and take the flyers out of the container because I didn't want anybody to have the information about that house.
Not trusting
so
God
I was
yet.
like, no, this is our, we need this house.
Was it in Kingsley then?
It's actually the current house we have.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, my word. That's
wow.
It is.
It worked. So if you're looking for a house and there's flyers, just steal them all.
Just take them. Take them.
And just
it's okay.
Mark your territory.
Take
that's
them
how
all.
we do it.
I know it sounds so terrible, but that's literally what I did.
Ended up
and that's where we were. Yeah. But I remember, I remember laying in bed once, and I think it was on my Bible app. Philippians 4:6 popped up, and I read that, and I was like, that was another lightning strike moment. That is so powerful. That is exactly what dude. And so I throughout this have been kind of suffering with anxiety and things. Didn't know it at the time. Had it all my life, but did not know it until Natalie was born, and then I was actually on medication for it, but and still am. But that particular Bible verse, "Do not be anxious." It was like smack, like
Matthew 6.
Yeah. This one was Philippians 4:6. I don't know if you heard that. But.
Yeah, it says that there too. Sorry, I was thinking about when Jesus said, do not be anxious about tomorrow because tomorrow has enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So even during all of this time, not in church, prayer is becoming a thing. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned a Bible app.
Mm-hmm.
So it's there.
It's there.
It isn't like college where it's just gone.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's
there. So that's a timely verse.
Oh, it was. And so then I prayed after that.
Yeah.
And the next day, I'm not kidding. This is so bizarre. But the next day, our realtor called us and was like, hey, we can put an offer on that house.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like really the very next day. And And we ended up closing on it and got that house. And the rest of that is history. It was wild.
So you were reading his word and it says, don't be anxious. And he said that when you read it, sometimes when we read it, like just jumps off the page at us or off the screen.
Yes.
And so you're like, it just like hit me like right in between.
It totally did.
Right.
Yes.
And then the very next day. So it was almost like the living word is just like speaking directly to you.
Yes.
Do not be anxious.
Yes.
And do you remember like the other part of that verse? Is it just, I
have it right here.
Yeah, so if you're listening to the podcast while you're dialing it up,
you're good.
This is the lady who says, listen, I don't remember
verses.
I don't.
That is the most sectioned out Bible I have ever seen. That is a teacher Bible. That is color-coded. That is someone who...
It is.
Yeah, this is not...
Because I don't know where things are,
I love it.
I'm writing in it and...
No, that is awesome.
You know.
Yeah, so sorry, read it for us.
No, it's fine. It says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And then it goes on to say, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And that one was super, I just read it in that app, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's it.
And then he said,
let your requests be made known to God. And I did. Yeah. And that was one of those, I remember growing up always being the one that was like, these people always say that like God talks to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like God talked to me and I heard it and he said blah, blah, blah. And I was always like, that has never happened. Like, when am I going to have that moment? Like, I want that moment too, right? And fast forward, but this in particular was one where I was like, oh my gosh, he was talking to me. He was speaking to me in 100%. That moment.
Yeah. And I love the way you described that. That I was just telling somebody last week that there's verses I've read 10 times, 100 times, maybe even 1,000 times. But then it's that moment where it's like it jumps off the page. That's when God's speaking to you because, this verse, this moment, this time, what I'm going through, that's exactly one of those moments where. It also reminded me of a silly meme, or you guys have probably seen it, or they've put it on whatever they're called, reels, whatever, where someone is saying, man, I wish God would speak to me. And the dude goes, read the Bible. And then he goes, no, like out loud. And the guy goes, read it out loud.
So true.
But so that
it's so
moment,
true.
Yeah.
And just that reminder of like, I kept saying like, when are you going to talk to me, God? But it's not my time. It's his. And I've got to remind myself of that, like, and
speak to me now.
Right. This forever hold your peace. Like, what are we talking about? Like, that's not it.
Yeah. No, he'll speak when he feels like it.
Yeah. But I love that it got you to act though. Like, because like you were just reading the Bible app, which is just sometimes like on our home screen, right?
Yep.
Is that
sure is.
So you're just like, hey, this is like my daily thing that I do to get in the word, but then it jumps out at you. But then it got you to act because you're like, so then I just started praying, So not only was he kind of, it jumped out onto you or like from the page or from the screen, then it got you to act. And then the very next day, you got to see God's faithfulness.
Yeah.
Like where he's like, see, like I am for real. I know that I was kind of just very like a gentle part of your childhood growing up. And then you really felt my presence when you were going through the valley when you lost your first, Yep. But then it's like, but I'm here. Like, and he's just showing you his faithfulness of, hey, this is my word. This is the action. But then you can see my faithfulness through that.
Yeah.
And the very next day.
It was wild.
Wow.
You couldn't have scripted it any better if it was a motion picture.
Did you share that with Tom at any point?
I did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was his response?
Because
men sometimes forget the details.
He does. Yeah. I don't remember, but I'm sure he thought it was like impeccable time. At that point, he was just trying to get out of my parents' house. So, he was ready to like, let's
Great.
go.
If God said so, we're in. Let's go. Yeah. Right. Whatever we got to do.
Because I know I had come to him before I read that, or maybe it was after I read that. I had come to him in just frustration and then was like, okay, look at this. Maybe this is a sign. I don't know, but like, take a look at this. So,
well, it's even interesting because the passage, it is one of my favorite ones. And I Jesus talks about do not be anxious. Paul talks about it. It's been said, I don't know who measured it, but I believe it, that the most frequently repeated command in the Bible is fear not. In some way, shape, and form. Do not be anxious, fear not, do not be afraid, whatever that is. But there's the exhortation to prayer. And you actually surprised me when I was like, hey, what's this podcast about? And you're like, listen, I want to talk about prayerful anxiety.
Yeah, right? The anxious prayer.
Or the anxious prayer, right? Do not be anxious about anything, but everything prayer and supplication. With thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Probably my favorite part is the very next verse, because it says something pretty spectacular. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And so there's man's peace that comes from getting the house I want, no health problems, no miscarriages, no family issues, no conflict, financial security, whatever that looks like. And then that's the peace of man. But there's a peace of God, which is different. And it says in the peace of God, which you've already said it. I can't explain it.
I don't know how
it just jumped off the page, however we describe it. Will guard your hearts and your minds. There's a faithful security that only comes from insecurity and
vulnerability. Just that little bit of, being vulnerable, being open, because man, boy, do we need some peace. And if you're anxious, suffering from anxiety, do you need that peace? Oh man, do you need it?
Did anxiety go away forever and ever from that point on? It was just glory to glory?
No.
That face, if you're not watching, you get to go to the YouTube on that moment where you're like, no, you idiot.
Didn't
I love
go
it.
away.
Look at
Come
that face. No, get out of my face. I'll shut up over here and eat a cookie.
Yeah, there you go. No, it didn't. It did not go away. No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. There's a lot of women that I sit with, and not just women, but it affects men as well. Like you said, you didn't even realize that you had anxiety, and then you started to, you said it was right after Natalie that you started to kind of experience like, wait, maybe I'm not supposed to be feeling like I'm being chased by a lion all the time, right? Right. Like, well,
believe it or not.
How did it come about where you're like, maybe this is a place for me to look deeper into?
So I can look back now and kind of remember moments growing up, like in high school, and things that happened that I can go, oh, that was probably because I was anxious, not knowing at the time that that's what it was. I remember a time before Natalie was born that I had or maybe it was after, I don't remember. Jeez, I remember a time. No, I don't. But I had a full-on panic attack, and at the time was the only person that I knew of that had ever experienced one in like my family or anything. And that was trying and scary, and just not knowing what was going on, and realizing after the fact, okay, that was a panic attack. Like, what is happening here? And then after having her, we went through these, oh my goodness, talk about roller coaster of emotions. Tom's mom passed away a month before she was born. So
in
it's
Tampa.
Yeah, at her, basically at her house.
I think that was 164.
Yeah.
Podcast 164.
Yeah. And that was a whole mixed bag of emotion. Feeling horrible for him, losing his mom, being absolutely ecstatic that we're about to have a baby.
Yeah.
So that was just like, whew. So after that, I kind of had a conversation with the doctor and said, like, what's going on with this? And my emotions are all over the place, and this is not, panic attack and this and that. And so that started the conversation of, plus the stress of teaching on top of it. And that is not a stress-free job.
And when you're married to a professional athlete.
And gosh, it was just a lot. So so we had the conversation and started the medication and have been so much better since. But and knowing it's one of those things that people don't really talk about.
Right.
You just kind of experience it.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially in like our parents' generation, it was like, they were like, we've never heard of this. And you're like, what's wrong with me? Kind of like, and
yes.
Yeah. And
so having a conversation and finding out that, I take anxiety medication. You do? Like, okay, well, let's chat because this is something that should be talked about,
Yeah.
And it's not like I wasn't doing things that were
causing it. It just was, So I recently was talking to Heidi and she explained it to me. She goes, because I was kind of going through a little bit of a thing as well. And she goes, after I got done, she just listened so sweetly. And she goes, okay, Rach, like if you had strep throat, how long would you go with strep throat without getting medicine for it? Like, and how long do you think your body would last? And I was like, oh yeah, that's a really good way of thinking of it. Because part of me is trying to like spiritualize it of like, well, God said that he's going to always be there with me, but why am I feeling this way? And just kind of feeling that way. And so, but when I have women around me that have walked through very similar things and they're willing to be open about it, it allows me permission to take the antibiotic because my body's sick, or take the medicine because right now my brain isn't able to do what it's supposed to do. Yep. But it doesn't take away from God's goodness. It doesn't take away from the promises that he says, fear not, but that he will walk through the valley of the shadow of death with us when it feels like we are in the valley,
Yeah.
And
like we're not failing because we have to take a medicine, or we're not failing because we're,
Yeah. Or he's not failing. Like he didn't fail us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I prayed, but that wasn't enough. So now I have to take medicine. So no, like he's still there. He's still very much in control and very much part of it. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that is a common misperception amongst a lot of people. But I think the more that people are willing to talk about it and share about it, that we're like, no, God is still good and he is still in control and he still is with us. And but our bodies are broken here and on this earth. And sometimes our brains get broken a little bit.
Same with
that last interaction made me very happy. Yeah. So like
Good.
if so like I mean that was just like two ladies like that was like coffee talk was happening talk. And so that's what they talk about when they're at the coffee shop. But it was so theological and like maybe this is a bad example, check me if I'm wrong on this, but to the person who's a Christian who's leaning on the promises of God and is even reading Philippians 4, right? And he's saying do not be anxious, right? But they have cancer and they're dying of cancer. We never look at that person. We never look at that person and say, snap out of it. Just pray, give your requests to God. And if you had enough faith, I mean, that would be the worst type of heretical gospel, right?
Yep.
And so it's not a contradiction for us to say, yes, I've sought help for anxiety. And my question a few minutes ago when I said, did all the anxiety go away? I was really setting you up. Of course it did.
No.
It doesn't. And it's not a verse in a prayer that's going to make it go away. But God's going to allow you to lean on him in the midst of that. Just like with the cancer diagnosis, whether you are healed or not, you're there with Christ in the middle of it, meeting you in the middle of it, whether you're going to, it's going to go into remission or not. He doesn't change.
Yep.
The things that we use to navigate it, he's still the best medicine. But it's not always, like you said, just read a little thing and it just is gone. Well, I had my verse for the day. But it can help me.
Yep.
It centers me back to what's real. It centers me back to he's in control, like you had used that
he's got
just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
So, no, that's coffee talk.
Coffee talk.
I don't know why that's SNL 1988 or whatever.
Because it's a great one.
Oh, it's a great one. All the new ones are terrible, but yeah. So you're in the house. The Bible app, God's speaking to you through the Bible app. When did church become a thing again, and why?
Boy, so getting into the house, we were like fresh, right? Back home. And I remember
new house, new us, new me, new family.
Haven't been here in 8 years. What's new? What's going on?
Everything was the same, wasn't it?
No.
Oh.
Well, some people might have been, but,
No.
Yeah. We always say we got older. Our parents stayed the same,
Yeah.
right? So all of our friends growing up, their parents all stayed the same. We all just grew up. But no, I remember putting it out on the old Facebook. Hey, where does everybody go to church? Because it wasn't like, oh, we want to go back to the Baptist church. We weren't going to do that. Didn't have really a connection with the Methodist church in Kingsley, but I mean, I guess we were kind of open to it, but it didn't really matter. But I think we attended their one service and we're kind of like, meh.
Yeah.
It wasn't really speaking to us.
2 maps.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah.
No, but so then we were like, when I put it out there, a few people had recommended the Tab, and I was like, man, let's check it out, see what's going on. We'd never been, didn't know about this place in Buckley. Maybe it's a good one. Maybe it'll be a good fit. I don't know. And that we started attending when we were still in T1.
That's right.
I still remember the sermon you gave with a cake. You had a cake sitting on a stand up front.
Yeah.
Heather Potter?
I want to say it was
I
like
think it was Heather Potter.
all chocolate.
Yeah.
I mean, that cake looked
I forgot
bomb.
about that. But as soon as you said it, I was like, yep, I've had a cake on stage.
Oh, you
I've
did?
cooked a steak and I've had a cake.
I remember the cake one, and I was like, that looks delicious.
Yeah.
And Sunday, did we still have Saturday night service then in T1?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was. I think it was Saturday night.
Because that cake had to survive for
and
2
we
days.
were hungry. And I'm staring at this cake like, what are you doing to me?
Yeah.
Oh, but it was so good. We didn't get to have any of it. The sermon was good. The cake, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm assuming it
I'm sure
was.
the cake was good.
I'm sure it was. But
we probably had it after second service on Sunday.
Right.
Yeah, straight calories.
Of course you did.
No protein. Yeah.
Yeah, so we just started attending kind of off and on here and there, and then it just became like a thing. Yeah. Tom, I don't know at what point he started attending Fight Club.
I invited him. So
you probably know where that was in our journey more than I do.
Big unit. I want to say we were in T2 by the time, and there were several guys that were from Kingsley, namely Uncle Bill Stone,
Boo,
and his little brother Adam Sharp, who was lying in the cut, always looking at you like he's ready to kill you.
He and I give a head nod.
And they all played basketball together. And I think it was Bill who first went to Tom and asked him to usher. I don't remember when you got in the band. Was that before Tom began to usher? Like someone outed you as a bass player, or you outed yourself. And then I think it was Brian that
was Brian.
Yeah, Brian figured it out. And all of a sudden I'm like, a chick bass player, let's go. Yes.
I get that a lot. I'm totally used to it. That's fine.
Yeah.
I think I started before Tom did.
Okay.
I think I started serving before he did.
Yeah. Did your faith both, I'm familiar with Tom's journey, but this isn't about Tom. He's not here.
It's okay.
Yeah, the cakes are for us. Is this when your faith journey started to accelerate?
I think so.
Okay.
Because then it's like I'm serving. I'm getting involved. I'm serving him again. Because like I said, man, I can feel a good sermon. Can I feel something from that?
Yeah.
Yes. Can I do something with it? Absolutely. And sidebar, kudos to you for allowing us to do that, because, applying it to your life and stuff is so powerful when you can, instead of just leaving and going, okay, now what?
Right.
So we don't get that. So thanks. But yeah, just being able to feel that again.
Yeah. Worship's where you connect.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. And it's deep and it's meaningful and it's, so being able to do that and see other people in the congregation feeling it, it is powerful. So I think that's when things started to kind of not only go a little faster, but deeper as well.
It's interesting how God's timing works with things like that.
It's definitely not ours.
There's the, the person that can know the day and the time. And then I just started reading the Bible cover to cover, and, I got rid of my drugs and my weed, and I stopped stealing and, and all this. And now I'm here preaching to you. I don't know what that is a conglomeration of, but there's also that life happens. And you said something a few minutes ago. You said, looking back, I can see it all makes sense now. Like when you're navigating, it doesn't make sense. I've said that before. I can make no sense of the navigation of my life looking ahead. Right. It's looking back. It's like, oh, that's why that happened. Yes. Oh, that's why that door closed.
Yes.
That's why that season of incredible hurt or what have you. You know, my pro soccer career didn't turn out to be much of a career. Yes. Right. And it's like, oh, in the moment, it was like all my hopes and dreams are gone.
It's devastating.
Yeah. But then it's like, oh, I would never be here. I would never have these friendships. I would never have these relationships. I would never get to sit at a table with two Amazon blondes and talk about anxiety, you know, which is way more meaningful than whatever I had concocted in my brain. So that would have been, that's at least 7. No, I can't remember time. I don't know how long we've had T1.
Yeah.
Like you guys have to have been here for at least 7 years, maybe 8.
Gosh, probably.
Or is it 10? Not even sure. We're all old here.
I don't know.
we don't even know.
Our memories are failing us. Yeah. No, and I do remember another point too, and this was pretty poignant, like a turning point in my relationship with God. It was fairly soon after, probably 2016-ish, when we were back and kind of casually attending. And I remember Tom and I have been together for a long time. And we would be the first to say that marriage is hard work. It is hard work. And when he was coaching, so we had been back, I was teaching full time. We had 2 kids. He was working full time plus coaching football, which if you're a part of the Kingsley football program is intense. Yeah. I'll be the first to say it. And I'm his biggest cheerleader. I'm right there with him every step of the way. But that was hard. That was very difficult. And we had gotten to a point truly where the D word came up in conversation and we were close. Too much time was being not focused on what it needed to be. And I think he would admit that too. I don't want to speak for him, but where we weren't connecting anymore and we, things were just awry. We weren't putting the time and the energy where it needed to be. And I specifically remember a point where he was doing something and I had gone out with some friends and I remember coming back home and just collapsing on our bathroom floor and just sobbing and praying. Like, what is this? Why is this happening? We need to fix it. This is not okay. Like, what needs to happen? God, just like, I'll give you everything. I will hand it all over to you, whatever it is. But it washed, honest to goodness, like washed through me. And we started, I think this was before he went to Fight Club, because we started to kind of navigate things a little differently after that. Because neither one of us wanted it, that big divorce word comes up and it's like, oh my gosh, neither one of us have been through it. We didn't come from broken families. We didn't, it was not a thing. And I don't think deep down we really wanted that. We didn't want it for our kids. We didn't want it for ourselves. We'd been through so much together. I mean, honestly, since high school, so much together. I remember praying, repenting. I mean, it was doing everything we could at that moment to just whatever God, whatever I need to give you. Like, please help us in this, because this can't be it. Yeah. This can't be what you have in mind for us, we started attending a little more regularly, and he started getting into Fight Club. And I think it helped us reprioritize things, because at that point it was, I always felt guilty, I think, and I think a lot of people are guilty of this, feeling like if you put yourself above your spouse, you're not supposed to put yourself above your spouse. You're supposed to put your spouse first. but like putting God before all of that, is that should I be doing that, or should I be putting my spouse first? And knowing that, no, if you put God first, then everything else kind of falls into place.
Well done.
You know what I mean? Everything else falls into place. If I put God first, then I have that desire to put my spouse before me. I don't feel like I need to put myself before him. I can put him before myself.
Yeah.
I can put, now granted, being a mom, that mom guilt and taking care of yourself and all of that, like that is a real thing. But put God first, put him up there first, because then everything else will take care of itself.
Wow.
And that was so huge, so
I didn't
powerful.
know that happened.
Yeah.
That bathroom floor moment.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it
with you. No, it's fine. But you're coming here, you're putting out for the whole world. So don't worry about that.
Thanks, world.
But what's interesting, so that would have been in the same year. Like I'm trying to put, what happens at Fight Club stays at Fight Club.
Yeah.
But and he never vented all of those things. He was completely focused on what do I need to change in my own life? Like I can say that without violating,
not divulging, right?
Yeah,
right.
He never, because I wonder sometimes if people think that's what guys do at Fight Club is they just vent about my old lady. Never with Tom, never.
Yeah.
And most guys never. But I remember during that year that he was in Fight Club, which would have been right after, he had a moment just like that, where he had a moment. And I think he described it on the podcast. It was pretty unique. And he was
working out.
Yeah, he was working out. And he was like, is that okay that I had this worship moment, this real God moment, like working out? I'm like, yeah, God meets us in places exactly where we are on your turf. He knows what it looks like. But the moment he met you, Tom, on your turf, it became his turf. He works out stronger than you.
Right.
Type of that thing.
Yeah.
So that all happened. What's interesting is I look back, God's so cool, is I noticed a change in you and Tom and your relationship and in your, not just commitment to church, because that sounds like we're just trying to get people to be faithful and regular.
But you're right.
There was some kind of a change, and I always just equated it to, it's what Tom was going on in a Fight Club. I had no idea. That was preceded by a praying wife in tears on a bathroom floor.
Yep.
Is that where the anxious prayer thing came from?
I think so.
Yeah.
That and fast forward to the career change, but yeah, definitely.
So now prayer's a real thing. So it's not just praying out with, hey, the D word might be happening.
You're feeling it. Like, at that point I was feeling it. Yeah. And feeling a change from it. Not just like, I'm going to throw this prayer up. Like, because that's what you're supposed to do.
You got to a place where you were completely at the end of yourself.
Yeah.
Where like growing up, you kind of were like, well, I kind of know who this God guy is, and I'm just going to go along with it. And then you're like, wait, I got a taste of him when I'm up doing praise and worship. And then I kind of got the setback with getting hurt. And then, but this is a time where you're a strong woman, right? And like you pull your boots up by the straps, right? And so you're like, I'm going to do this. And you and both Tom are both very similar in that aspect of it. But this is the time where you're completely empty of yourself and you were like, you can have it all.
Yeah.
I just need you.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And so,
because that was similar to his moment. Just all of me.
All of it.
Boom.
Whatever it is.
And I like how you said that. There's little tastes and then there's a moment. It's a fish or cut bait moment. It's either give me all or nothing.
God can't fill a cup that's already full. Right?
There you go.
And so you were completely emptied of yourself. And then that's when you saw the like explosion of their marriage, their commitment
their
to
service,
church,
there was a lightness, there's a joy. Even in Tom, more willing to say, this is what's going on. I mean, he's an introvert guy. He's not going to just blah like me, but yeah.
It was huge.
So the career change.
Oh, yeah. Well, first I want to say, too, with the moment, there is nothing sexier than your husband reading a Bible? Because let me tell you, husbands, there's nothing like for your lady. Because I noticed that change in him too, with his spirituality and watching him sit there and read. And I got to prepare for Fight Club, and I've got to, and when the kids would ask a question, and he was, ready to just. Oh my goodness! Hello. Yeah. It was like I don't know what this. But honestly, it was just like, it was powerful.
That's probably the greatest quote I've ever heard on this podcast.
Ladies. I'm just telling you.
Yeah,
but
no, that's awesome.
It was powerful.
Cool.
To see that, you know, to see that happen. It didn't just happen in me. It happened in him too. And yeah. But yeah, so the career change, that was tough because I always knew I wanted to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that, I don't want to say I thought because it's not. I thought that that's it. And I know it's where God had me. That's what he wanted me to do. And to mold some lives and shape some kids and just be that outlet for them to talk to and learn things too. But so to be an educator was huge for me. But to make a pivot, especially this late in the game, or at least I thought it was late in the game, that was tough. It was challenging. It took a lot of prayer.
Yeah.
That was when prayer rose above again.
And you were doing Trace cakes on the side, right?
I was.
Yeah.
Yep.
You were baking cakes for people. You were doing your confections.
Yep.
I don't remember if you had a website or not.
I don't know if I did at that point, but it was just kind of on the side, like word of mouth, little here and there. Started as a little hobby.
Yeah, we had Trace cakes before it was cool.
Oh, so. Yeah, before it was cool, going way back.
And that was a cool cake. I remember that cool cake.
How long ago did you make the move?
That was in, I knew you were going to ask me that, and I tried to do the math before. That was...
Is it longer than 5 years?
No.
No,
I've
been recent.
Out of the classroom for 3 years now.
But are you really out of the classroom?
Well, that's a great question.
Because isn't a big part of Trace Cakes teaching?
Teaching.
Yeah.
I got to combine the two things.
You're still teaching.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. So people can come and learn.
They can.
Right? Sign up, do the thing. You're going to learn how to do the
yeah.
thing.
So I got to combine the two passions, right?
Yeah.
Which has been a blessing, huge blessing.
Yeah.
Given me more time to be with the kids and, not sacrifice things. Because I would teach all day. And business started to pick up. So I would teach all day, come home, make dinner, whatever, then decorate.
Yeah.
And bake and whatever. And it started off in our family kitchen. So it took over our dining room. It took over, and it was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. But you're passionate about it. You love it.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. And it was, oh my goodness, I think I'm going to have to make a decision. And, talking about that anxiousness and the anxiety, teaching through COVID.
Yeah.
I hate to bring up the C word, but teaching through COVID was one of the probably the lowest, worst moments of my teaching profession.
So that kind of helped?
It did. It gave a little bit of a nudge. But it wasn't that I necessarily needed a nudge. It was more like, oh my gosh, I'm worried. Can this be a thing? Yeah. Can we survive with me doing this and you working and, and so prayer became another huge, I'd pray about, I remember I would pray about it. And then I'd wake up the next day and have an order inquiry on my phone. And I'm like, good grief.
Yeah.
Like, if this isn't a sign, I don't know what is,
What did your prayers look like during that time? Because before they were more crisis. This is if it's a crisis, it's a small, I'm not talking about the pandemic. I'm talking about,
no, you're fine.
Do I switch from teaching to just doing this full time? This is almost proactive. Hey, God, this is a dream. This is something I love. This was
a pipe dream. This was like not even like, I'm supposed to be teaching, right?
Yeah.
Am I really going to do this full time now? So it was, the prayer was, okay, God, if this is the way you want me to go, if this full-time pursuit of this is the way I'm supposed to go, then let's have it happen.
Yeah.
It was conversations with God. It was conversations with Tom. Should we be doing this? I'm feeling this. Should we be doing this? And I was blown away because he was 100% like, yeah, if this is what you want to do, like, let's do it.
Wow.
Do it. Go ahead.
Wow.
We'll be fine.
Were there any moments, and it's okay if there's not, but were there any moments in that journey where, like, was there a leap off the page moment? Was there a confirmation that was bigger than the rest, or because sometimes I've had those, and then sometimes I've had just the little slow burn ones.
See, and I think it was more of those little slow burn ones. I do, with the, hey, I pray about it. The next day there's an order. I pray about it. Then there's something else that happens, but little slow, not a fall on my knees, crying my eyes, nothing like that. No,
Right.
but I do remember going into my principal's office and telling him that I was making the decision. And he was crying, and I was crying, and we were just like hot mess express, oh
Manton
my gosh,
lost a good one.
And I love them. I
Yeah.
love them to pieces, and I still do, and we still have a good relationship. Thankfully, it wasn't like get out and
Right.
don't
Right.
let the door hit you on the way out kind of thing. And I still go sub once in a while. And that wasn't the reason I was leaving. It wasn't my coworkers.
No.
It wasn't like I had a terrible boss.
No.
It was nothing like that.
No. I want to make cakes.
It was just time.
Making a cake.
Yeah. And the stress relief. Oh my gosh. Whatever stress I have now is whatever I put on myself. So it has allowed me more time for the things that are really mattering most in my life right now. And if I want to go back, I can go back,
Yeah.
But
And you're still teaching science. It's just with flour and
Yeah.
measurements.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Experimenting in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Experimenting in the kitchen.
It's a blast.
You're the new cake boss.
Yeah.
No, you have more nicknames than anybody that I know. Because we call you Trace.
And they're not ones that I've given myself either.
Trace Cakes is like what, but.
So Trace actually comes from, I don't know if you knew this, my brother.
I didn't know.
Ever since he could talk, I think. He never called me Tracey. He always called me Trace.
Yeah.
So all growing up, I've always been Trace.
Okay.
So that's not a new one to me.
Gotcha.
That's where the business name comes from, because I actually asked him for help
Right.
coming up with a name. And he was like,
Trace
how about
Cake.
Trace Cakes? Rolls
Oh,
right
that's
off the
cool.
tongue. And I was like,
Yeah.
yep, we're doing it.
Our executive producer, because he's on the creative arts, you're
Yes.
part of that team.
He's wonderful.
He's referred to you as Base Cakes.
Base Cakes.
So now we're just smashing them. I don't know if he'll say that in front of Tom. I don't know how Tom feels about Base Cakes, but I know he likes Trace Cakes.
I mean, I'm sure he'd be okay with Base Cakes,
Yeah.
but he types it up on our sheets all the time.
This
Thanks,
is cool.
Matt. Thank you.
I'm always pumped to see just how God brings us in his way, in his timing, and the surrender part,
So important.
Would you have ever imagined that you'd be sharing your testimony, your story, your changed life story on a podcast, or that you would be pursuing what you love in your hometown? You're making cakes and you're bringing joy. This is joy.
And other confections.
This is
Yeah,
joy.
yeah, right.
Yeah, I'll just keep this one right
One
here because I
cavity at
think
a
you were
time.
looking at that one. All right.
She'll fight you.
You can have
I'll be
whichever one
fine.
you want. Yeah, yeah.
She can stop by the shop later. It's fine.
Yeah.
No.
I was
Oh,
already
yeah, she
planning
can
on-
stop right.
Shopping
right.
hours are from 4 to 7.
Yeah.
That's right. Tuesday, Thursday, 4 to 7.
Tuesday. Really? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Might have to take a class.
You know how many times I've heard that? People, if you would please sign up for a class, that would
Please
be
sign
awesome.
up for a class.
And they
They
can
are
sign
so
up for a
fun.
class on
Yeah.
tracecakes.com.
They can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they can
Our St.
pray
Patty's
as
Day
they
one's
do
just
it.
posted. Yeah. No,
Oh, St. Patty's Day is coming up.
It
Yeah.
is.
Do we have something special for that?
I do.
Is it a green giraffe? No, just kidding. Sorry.
Johnny V.
Sorry.
I thought we were going to make it.
I thought
No.
we were going to make
So
it. No.
close.
No.
No, it's not. But it is. They are fun, and I teach you everything. So you have
Yeah.
to have no baking skills required, no decorating skills.
It's like a
required.
science class.
Yeah.
Would this be, if there's a dude that's still with us, listen to this podcast,
Please
which
come,
I
dudes.
think there are, would this be a date night that this guy could do with his wife?
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
a date afternoon, I guess it would be.
Or night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Just like, hey,
So
I
much
signed
fun.
us up for a baking class. How many points does a guy get if he were to do that? Like if Bo
Oh.
came home to you and said, hey, we're going to do a
going to
Trace
class.
Cakes
I
baking
think
class.
that's on the agenda for next month.
Whoa.
Nice.
I might
It
have to
will
do it
be.
with Darcy. Just
should.
as a, hey,
He
we're
doesn't
going to
know it
do
yet.
Bring a
little,
bunch of couples. I mean, yeah.
Oh, we might have to bring
It's
her
so
small
fun.
group.
Yeah.
It's so
How
fun.
many couples can you handle at a, or how many people can you handle in a class?
Comfortably up to 20.
Oh,
Sweet.
That's a small group.
Let's do that
Let's
with
do
our
it.
group.
Let's do it.
You guys would have so much fun.
Wait,
It's so
we're
much
all in
fun.
the same small group.
We are.
I know.
I
It
just
would be
divulged
so
that.
much fun.
We should bring our whole crew.
We're
I
gonna
want to
do it.
see
It'd be so
Tim
fun.
trying to bake. That'll be
It's
so
fun to
funny.
watch
And
people.
pipe.
But see, that's the thing. You don't have to bake anything.
Oh,
I bake
okay.
everything for you. So
Oh.
you decorate it all.
Oh, we're going to be decorating.
Yes.
I want to see Tim.
I
But
do.
do a
watching
Lego.
people
Yeah.
decorate is the best.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's so good.
We might have to do that.
Want to see
That's
him
You
just
can-
get
if
a
as
little
long as-
pressure. Like, no.
Exactly. I tell everybody to bring a good attitude.
Yes.
Or Darcy, I am
Open
not
mind.
artistic. And it's like, you are tonight.
Oh, I get those. I get those people a lot too,
That
and
could be
and
a
they are
blast.
blown away at what they can create.
Staff outing.
Oh, that would be fun.
Wow.
That would
So
be
That
fun.
might be fun.
So fun.
Cool. So people can do that,
And right in the village.
tracecase.com.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right in the village of Kingsley. Right
in
next
the
to
village of
Papano's
Kingsley.
Pizza.
Hey,
Yeah.
when you have a conversation with Tracey, go in through the main door, not through the pizza door, because then it just gets. I felt so bad.
I'm totally okay with you coming through the pizza door. So we have when we put the studio in, we have an adjoining door that opens right into Papano's.
Oh, okay.
And Jeff, I got to give a
amazing.
shout out to Jeff. He is
Shout out to Papano's Pizza.
Yeah.
Papano's and specifically Jeff
In
Yax.
Kingsley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
he is
we like that
absolutely
place.
incredible. And we've collaborated on a lot of things so far and continuing to do so as we go forward.
Collaborated pizza cake.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not a pizza cake,
Yeah.
but yeah,
It's a pie.
we're doing a lot of collabs. Just get ready, okay? That's
Okay,
all I'm
we're
going to
just
say to you.
getting ready.
Just get ready. But he's been wonderful through the whole process. And yeah, so we have an adjoining door that we are now keeping propped open between our two spaces. So
Yeah.
I wish I could say you could smell all of my good stuff, but you can't because their
It's
pizza smell
overpowering.
is
Their
so
pizza smell
overwhelming.
good, yeah. I can smell myself getting fatter there.
Yeah.
But
I mean, pizza and dessert,
yourself
what's better than that?
yeah, no doubt. Pizza and cake. Look
Right.
at you. I might sneak
Pizza
some
and
pie. in,
pie.
but-
Yeah,
no,
I
I
know
like your
you want the
cakes. These
pie.
are great.
I do have pie.
I got
I
a
have
peanut
the-
butter cup because I'm a glutton. I'm probably
We
sure
have the
it with my
oatmeal
wife.
cream pie.
Oh yeah, those are good too. That's like a sandwich. But cool.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on.
I
This is-
so appreciate you having me.
Anything else that you wanted to share before you go? Because you're a
Now
huge
you're
supporter
putting
of the
me on the
podcast.
spot.
No. If you've got it all out, that's good.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to make sure.
No, I appreciate it. And just, yeah, that power of prayer, man.
Will you keep praying those anxious prayers? Because that's what they're for.
They seem to
I
be
think the
working.
reason that God said over and over and over, fear not, do not be afraid, do not be anxious, is because he knows that there's not just one verse, one prayer.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to overcome it.
Mhm.
It's a lifetime journey with him in faith. And Rachel, I appreciate you coming on. I'm always
Thanks, Rach.
pumped about your insights, and you speak the language. Sometimes the language that I don't speak as well,
Mm.
you put it into words in a way that
Mm-hmm.
hopefully this will be helpful for someone. So
Mhm.
share this podcast. Support tracecakes.com. They're our supporter
Sign up for
today.
a class.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What
No
was
free
that?
shout
Sign up for a class.
Yeah, sign up for a class. And Papano's Pizza. That's a new one. No free shout-outs, Papano's.
Oh,
Oh,
Papano's Pizza. Show
Yeah,
up, Jeff. Come on.
Yeah. Benji likes a meat lovers if we can get one.
Oh, we
So,
can get those.
Yeah, of course.
I'll hook them up.
All right. Until next time, podcast family, this is Rachel, the legend for the Trace Cakes, Tracey Kaleita,
Thanks
Benjamin
for having me.
Vermilia, and me signing off.